Hey guys, today I want to do a review on the Soundpath Ultra cables, and these are the Ultra speaker cables. And when we talk about speaker cables, it's a hotly debated topic because you've got some people that'll say, well, you can go down to local Home Depot and get some lamp cord, and that'll perform just as well as any other speaker cable out there. And then you've got the other side of the spectrum where people believe that you have to have the speaker cables elevated, super cooled, solid gold, all that stuff to be able to get the right experience. And, so I'm certainly not going to resolve that debate today or come to the conclusion. But I will say that this process did actually change my opinion on speaker cables because I used to, I kind of sided with the guys that said, hey, just make sure you have a good enough gauge and that should be it. And typically, that's where I've been. But I finally, I've had these cables for a while and, I've been enjoying them and whatnot, but I never did any A/B testing with it. In other words, plugging in one cable and then immediately plugging in another cable. I didn't do that. And I should have, it's just something I didn't get to until recently. And my apologies to SVS, you guys sent me these cables a long time ago. I just didn't get it done. And so I apologize for that. But I finally got it done. I finally set aside the time. I had the amplifier all twisted and to where I could get at the cables easily and just quickly switch them out. I made sure all the cables were 10 foot long, made sure they were all banana plug terminated, so it was all the same. And, I listened to, about 2 songs back to back, and I only listened for about 30 seconds so I could quickly switch out and hear that same 30 seconds on the different cable. And some people call this listening to your cable rather than listening to your speakers and whatnot. And Angel's still got her cone on, so she's kind of crashing about here. She's going to get that off here hopefully soon. But anyway, yeah, here she comes. Poor thing. Angel, you gonna lay down, huh? Yeah. She's doing good. It's just her nose still isn't quite healed up yet. So anyway, back to the cables. So anyway, yeah, you won't find a lot of pro audio guys talking about spending all kinds of money on speaker cables. And, it's kind of a point of, I don't know, a lot of them have a good laugh at the audio industry, the home audio industry because of that. And I get why. I mean, you get into $20, $30 per foot of cable and beyond. I see the point. I couldn't see spending that kind of money. It just doesn't seem, I don't know, the return on investment doesn't seem very good. It just seems like you're spending a lot of money to get a minor benefit because really, it's minor. It's there, but the difference in cables is minor. And so I don't know. And I also, to point out, I did not use really cheap cable. I used, the SVS Soundpath, I used some Monoprice cable, and then I used the Ultra cable. So those are the 3 cables I went through to kind of hear the differences. And, so I could have gone with like 15 cables and tried to listen to them all and really grade each one and this and that. I've got fibromyalgia, guys. That kind of thing is exhausting to me, and I started getting a flare-up during this process. It was just trying to pay attention to everything and notice it all and all that stuff and getting up and down and I'll be honest, it kicked my butt. and that's embarrassing to admit, but that's what fibromyalgia does. It knocks you out. But I did get it done, and the results were interesting. I don't know. For me, I don't think it'd be worth chasing the speaker cable dragon, so to speak. Trying to find the absolute best in the world because, again, the difference is there. It's good, I think, in comparing these cables. But I think there's a limit on how good it can get. And I think you can end up spending thousands and thousands just in the whole process, and go for it. I just can't advise you on the route. I can't go down that path with you because it's, man, I could see making yourself crazy with this stuff. When it comes to like subwoofers, I can say, oh yeah, you get yourself a PB2000, you're going to notice the difference, especially coming from a basic sub. You're going to notice the difference. I mean, you see I got the graph up there. There's a difference. It's undeniable. It knocks you across the face when you hear it. You have to listen a little bit harder with speaker cables. You have to pay a little bit closer attention. But from what I've seen, there's all kinds of fuzzy physics out there. There's all kinds of people talking about some crazy stuff when it comes to speaker cables. And there's, I'm sure, a good portion of it is absolute, it's I don't know, I don't want to say garbage, but some really far out there stuff. But again, what I've learned from this process is that there may be a difference. There may be something so minor and so different that, you hear it. So if you hear something you like and you can afford it, go for it. I am going to be a lot less judgmental now than I was before I did this process. And from what I've seen, what I like so far is, the shielding, I think, makes a difference. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. So this is the Monoprice cable, and this is 14 gauge, or I'm sorry, 12 gauge. So pretty decent cable. Sounds good, not bad. Then I've got the SVS Soundpath 1. Okay, this is actually 14 gauge. Let's see if I can get it to focus there. 14 gauge, but it's just as thick as the Monoprice. So, again, this was good sounding cable. This didn't sound bad. I don't want that to come out from this at all. This sounded good, but it was just the difference of when I plugged this cable in. Okay, this is the SVS Ultra cable. It's built well. It's got some good shielding in it and whatnot. And when I plugged these in, the sound was warmer. It was clearer. It was just a touch nicer. It was, I noticed it, okay? And I didn't have to try really hard to notice it. And I had my wife listening to, and I didn't tell her which cable was on or whatnot, but she always went back to this was her favorite cable among the three here. So, and I'm not going to say she's unsophisticated with this stuff, but she's not super into it like I am, but she was able to hear the difference as well. Now, granted, she's probably got a little better ear than most because of what she listens to all the time, but really, she was able to tell the difference, and it was always clear to her when I went back to this cable, even if I didn't tell her. So that's impressive. The question comes in, when do you buy these? When does it make sense? If you're scrounging money together and you're trying to make something happen, I wouldn't prioritize money on your speaker cables. I would make sure that you got something good, but I wouldn't necessarily, I'm saying if you're spending under $100 on a speaker, you probably don't want to spend that kind of money on a good cable. Now, if you're spending $250, $300, $500, $1,000 on a speaker, then yes, the ultra cable like this makes sense. It's a good, worthwhile thing. Now, I'll also go back and I'll say, okay, let's say you're spending, let's say you're just getting the prime satellite speakers, which is the most economical speaker SVS makes. If you're running all of those just because that's all you have room for, then yeah, it makes sense. I think you'll notice a difference by going to the ultra cable. But if that's all you can afford, rather than put the money into the cable, I would say upgrade your center channel and make it a true center rather than a 5.1 with all just sats. If you can fit the center, I would put the money in the center first. So, you know what I mean? Like and I'm speaking mostly to people on a budget. Put the money into speakers, before your cable. Now, once you have your speakers all set up and that's the direction you're going, then upgrading the cable makes sense. You know what I mean? It's worthwhile. And particularly this cable, I was surprised to hear that much of a difference by doing the A/B testing, you know. And again, I had the amp turned sideways. I was plugging them in, listening to 30 seconds of a song, unplugging them, plugging the other ones back in, going back and listening to that same section. I had to hustle because, you know, I have this, what I call sonic memory. I don't know what it's necessarily called, but as time goes by, your memory of how something sounded changes. And you think, oh, this sounded awesome and this wasn't so good. And then when you go back and actually check that later, you get a difference. I know I've done some comparisons on old speakers I've had and compared them to what I'm listening to now, expecting them to be somewhat comparable and being blown away by the massive difference. So your sonic memory, it fades and it tricks you. It says, oh yeah, no, that was a good sounding speaker. And then you go back and listen to it and, well, wow, that was not so good. So that's why it's important to plug it in really quickly and do it fast like that. Otherwise, your memory kind of fades and you're not, you know, oh, you think, well, you know, it's like if you go from one subwoofer to another subwoofer and you've had a week in between that, the new one may sound so much better, or you know, it's your memory of it may not be right. That's why it's important to do A/B testing as quickly as possible, and side by sides is the best. So anyway, that's been my thing. Again, the Ultra cables, they were just warmer, cleaner, and I don't know how to really describe that without sounding too audiophile type. Like, I don't know, I don't want to sound snooty about this whole thing. That's kind of not how I operate. But I did notice those subtle differences, and it was nicer. And, you know, if I have my way, I would like to have Ultra cables all the way around. Another point I'll make, too, is that, you know, speaker cables, they put a load on your amplifier. And so the shorter you can run them, the better. Now, of course, when you're running surrounds and stuff like that, you don't really have much of a choice. You can't have just speaker cables running straight across a straight line. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But if you can run, you know, the shorter runs you can do, the better. And so I've got 10-foot cable, and as you can see, I could bring the cable all the way up here. That's too much cable. I could have gotten by with 6-foot cable, and it probably would have helped. To what degree? I don't know. I don't know if I'd necessarily, you know, buy another, you know, buy more cables to make it shorter. This is fine, but if you're going to buy cables, try and get the shortest you can get away with. And I guess that's another good point about these is these can be custom terminated by SVS in Ohio, and you know, you can order them to whatever custom length you want. You can have spades on one end and bananas on the other, or just kind of however you want them set up. They'll do that for you. And a lot of them are already pre-terminated and stuff like that, but if you say you want a specific number, they'll terminate them exactly the way you want them. My big thing there is just make sure you measure them right, okay? But the other thing, too, is that when you order these, let's say you say, okay, I want a 13.5-foot cable, and you order them, you've got the SVS Bill of Rights and all that stuff, which includes free shipping, which includes the 45-day return policy. That even applies on custom cut lengths. So if you order a custom cut length and you're just not happy with it, the Bill of Rights still applies. So, you know, that's another good thing, is they still stand behind their products as always. I expect they always would. But you can go and listen to it, and if you don't notice the difference, if you don't feel it, you can send it back. But that's one thing I noticed about SVS. They don't really bring something to market unless there's really a reason for it, unless it really does something. I've got the subwoofer isolation system. That's another good product that just makes sense. It does something. There's a noticeable difference. So that's kind of a trend with SVS. They don't usually make a product that doesn't make sense. Or just to capitalize on something. They have to, I don't know. That's just something I've noticed. But anyway, you know, I see the value in this. I see the value in upgrading from the Soundpath 1, which is the bulk cable I just showed you, to the Ultra. Again, so long as it makes sense, you know what I mean? If you're tight on budget, you know, the Soundpath one makes a lot of sense. And again, I want to reiterate, those cables don't sound bad, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that the Ultra cable sounds better. And I just want to be real clear on that, because again, the regular shielded cable does fine. It's not a bad sound. It's just that Ultra cable just sounds a bit cleaner and a bit nicer. So anyway, I'm trying to think of anything else I wanted to cover with these. Let's see here. I don't know. That's just my thing on speaker cables. Again, I know that there's a lot of I don't know, fuzzy physics out there, fuzzy science. There is a lot of claims. There's, you know, but again, what I've learned from this process, you know, I used to joke at people that would elevate their cables. Now I'm not entirely sure that I should joke about it. I don't know. I haven't done that yet. I don't know. That doesn't seem quite right to me. But again, if you're listening real hard, maybe you'll be able to hear a difference. But you'd have to really test it side by side. You know, in speaker cable that is, you know, runs into like, I mean, honestly, I couldn't see paying $500 for a strand of cable for one speaker. That seems excessive to me. It really does. Whereas, you know, I don't know, just making sure you have a good gauge and stuff like that's good. If you want an upgraded cable, go into something that's just a little more upgraded, it makes sense. But you lose me when you go down that rabbit hole of, well, I've got to have these braided wires and they have to be cryogenically frozen and laced with gold and all this stuff. You know, how good can it possibly get? You know, but again, I am not going to pass judgment on that because I have not done all of that. I have not gone and listened to solid gold speaker cable that's been cryogenically frozen and put in blessed by the monks of, you know, Antarctica, whatever. Maybe there is something to it. I'm going to be a little less judgmental. I'm going to be a little more open to it, but I'm still going to be very, I don't know. I'm still not going to be like just jumping on board. I've really got to hear a difference before I notice. I'm just delighted that I actually did notice a difference between these Ultra cables and the Soundpath one, because, you know, I don't want to, you know, SVS has been real supportive of this site. You know, I'm their first affiliate at school, and it's one of those things where I don't want to have to say something bad about their product. And I was worried about that. I was worried that I was going to plug these in and just not notice, but I did. One thing I will say is that between the terminations, whether it's banana or spade, I would go with spade over banana. Backwards, sorry. I would go with banana over spade. The spade plugins, they tend to come loose, and I don't know, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of a termination. You want it to be a solid connection, and the spades, they just kind of come loose. And that's not just with, you know, SVS stuff, it's with any brand out there. The spades I'm just not wild about, but the banana plugs really made a difference as far as plugging in the speaker cables and switching them out real quick. If I was trying to do this with just regular, you know, bare wire and trying to do all that, I would have given up. That's a pain. But it really made this process a lot easier. You know, I guess the important part with banana cables is making sure they're good and tight. And, you know, if you've got the kind you terminate yourself, make sure they're real tight on there. You don't want them loose. But anyway, that's my thing. This was a long overdue topic. You know, I've had these Ultra cables for a while. And so that's another thing, is they were definitely broke in. That counts, right? But I'm glad I finally did this so I could, you know, get this out of the way and talk about these, because I think they're very good cables. I think they make a lot of sense. They're also good the way they're shielded and stuff. I think you can see them down there. The way they're shielded, if you've got issues with potential hums or things like that, they're good. And that's another good reason to get the Soundpath speaker or subwoofer cable. If you guys have hums, or you might have a potential for a hum, those are real good at getting rid of those. So, and I think they've got kind of the similar technology in their speaker cable, which might attribute to the cleaner sound. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not going to delve into making those guesses, but they definitely did it right with this Ultra cable. I like it a lot. I think it's a great cable. I think it's worthwhile. So that's my thing, guys. I apologize. It took me so long to get this done, and I'm going to blame some of that on the fibromyalgia, because really it did take it out of me. You know, just getting up and down and switching these out and stuff. I mean, by the end of the day, I was cooked. So, but anyway, guys, I really appreciate it. Again, I just hit 2,000 subscribers. Can't thank you guys enough. It means the world to me. So, thanks again. And if you haven't already, please subscribe.